Hi, my name is Megan Atole and I make interactive floor and wall experiences for a living. I use software called LUMOplay, and most of the time when I do my weekly tutorials, I'm showing you how to make something using the code-free templates that are built into LUMOplay software. This week is going to be a little bit different. Very often we'll be contacted by people who want to use 3D models or custom 3D models in their interactive effects, and for that we have a Unity SDK. We don't have a lot of documentation, but it is a fairly easy process. Using our SDK, you just open the package, and if you're familiar with Unity at all, you'll be able to very easily create a game in Unity that leverages LUMOplay's motion and vision server, the thing that's in our software that allows you to hook any 3D camera in to your computer and use it to track things like balls hitting the wall or people moving in front of a screen or people walking across a floor. Now, this interactive effect that I've made was a community request. Somebody from the LUMOplay user community asked me to make something that had 3D pumpkins. We do have something in our library that has pumpkins and jack-o'-lanterns in it, but they're constantly falling. He found that the constant motion of the jack-o'-lanterns falling was a little bit too frantic for the project that he wants to do. So what I've done is I've created, using our SDK, a very simple pumpkin jack-o'-lantern floor where you can kick the jack-o'-lanterns around, they all stay on the floor, and there's a limited number of them, and when nobody is playing with the floor, there's not a lot of frantic motion happening. So we can take a look at that, and I will walk you through the SDK and show you how I did it and how simple it is and how easy it is for you to get started. Unity is free, LUMOplay Free is free. You don't need to have an entire system to get started learning how to do this. So if you're interested in trying our SDK, I'll link to the article about how to use it in the description. And all you need to do is ask us and we'll send it to you with all of the documentation that you need to get started. So let's head over to my design computer. I'll show you how I built this effect and how you can get started making Unity games for LUMOplay. And if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments, or you can reach me directly at info@lumoplay.com. Let's get started. To access the LUMOplay SDK, go to our Community Help Center and scroll down to Making Apps and Games. In this section, you'll find information about the LUMOplay SDK, and you'll be able to request access to the SDK. When you fill out this form, you'll get an email that gives you a link to download the SDK from our Git repository. You can also search for the LUMOplay SDK in Git, but if you just go straight to GitHub, you won't get the extra links that connect you to things like our tutorials and our Discord server. When you go to the Git repository, you can select download, and you'll be able to download the package for Unity as a zip file. There will also be documentation about how this SDK can be used. Once you've downloaded and uncompressed the SDK so that you can access the folder, open Unity and make a new project. Just use the regular 3D settings, name your project, and choose a folder where you'll be able to find the project in the future. When your new Unity project opens, go to Import Assets, and you'll be able to import the package that you downloaded as the Unity SDK. The package will include everything you need to go through our example scenes. In this tutorial, I'm just going to be modifying one of the example scenes. Once the package is installed, you'll be able to see all of the different example scenes, and today the example scene that we're going to be using is Explosive Force. So your default new Unity project will have its own sample scene, the main scene. You want to go into our package and open the scene that you want to edit. The Explosive Force scene works when you touch the background, so you're not actually kicking the balls in this example. You're actually just touching the background, and it's generating a force that's making the balls move. The community member who made this request wanted a jack-o'-lanterns floor, So fortunately, there are 2 really nice jack-o'-lantern models available for free in the Unity Asset Store. If you go to the Unity Asset Store, you can do a search for free assets and add them to your library and immediately import them into your project. So that's what I'm doing in this case. Once the assets are imported, you can drag them onto your scene and compare the settings on the ball to the settings that are assigned to the asset that you have imported. I like to remove all but one of the balls because I'm just going to use it as a reference so that I can compare the components and the settings of those components and make sure that the exact same settings are applied to the meshes that I'm bringing in. You may also need to resize your assets, and it's important to position them on the scene in the middle of the floor. This can be a little tricky if you're not used to working in 3D, so go slow, and if you're doing what I'm doing and designing on a Mac using a trackpad, you may have to be a little bit patient. I've put the jack-o'-lantern onto the floor where I can see it, and I'm going to resize it a little bit and just adjust it, and then just make sure that all of the settings and components match between the ball and the pumpkin that I've just imported, and make sure that the pumpkin is tagged as ball. Once that's done, the pumpkin will behave the same way as the ball. Now, something that you might notice is that this pumpkin is rotating kind of funky, and the reason for that is that I copied the settings exactly from the ball to the pumpkin, which means that I gave it a ball or a sphere collider, and that is not the shape of the pumpkin, so it's not going to look right when it rotates. So I'm going to change that collider to a mesh collider, and in the end it will roll around as though it's a pumpkin that's rolling instead of a ball that's rolling. Another thing that you might notice when you're using the explosive force scene is that everything bounces really high. You can modify that by changing the height of the ceiling. Now, this is an invisible layer, but if you select it, you'll be able to see it and move it around. So I'm dropping the top of the box that contains all of the objects that are being moved around so that it doesn't bounce as high, and in this way it's not going to look as weird when you kick it. It won't move in 3D towards the player so high that it disappears from the screen. If I test it now, you'll see that that pumpkin is staying on the screen. It's not bouncing way up high, and it's still rolling funny because I haven't changed the mesh yet, but when I change that mesh collider, it'll stop acting so funky. Now that I have the collider behaving the way that I want it to, all I need to do is duplicate this and make a whole bunch of pumpkins, just like there were a whole bunch of balls when I first opened this example scene. So I'm just gonna click it and copy it and duplicate it and make a whole bunch of them and test it again. Now that I have the first pumpkin duplicated and I've resized it so that there's a little bit of variety, I'm going to add the second pumpkin that I downloaded from the asset store. I'm saying pumpkin because saying jack-o'-lantern every single time is going to make me stumble on my words, but you know what I mean. An angry pumpkin. I'm going to add some more angry pumpkins. I'm almost done making this effect. All I need to do now is change the background texture because I don't want it to be chroma key green. So I'm going to import a texture. It's just an image file that I made for another project to turn the background into a nice cobblestone. And the best way to do this is to locate one of the folders that has textures in it. There'll be multiple folders with image files in this project because I've imported multiple packages with different assets. So just find one of them and then locate the image that you want to use as your texture and drag it into Unity into that textures folder. Now that I've imported my texture, all I need to do is go to the background floor object and make a new material that has that texture on it. If you don't know how to do things like importing stuff into Unity or making materials, there's tons of tutorials on YouTube that you can watch that will take 2 seconds and explain it to you better than I can, but it's a very easy process. So you can test this out and you can see how it looks, and if the texture doesn't work out the way you want it to, you can always change it by opening it in a graphics editor program, lightening it up. You can also apply things like bump maps. I'm not getting that fancy with this effect. The very last thing that you need to do when you've made something with the LUMOplay SDK in Unity is publish your app. So you go to the build settings and make sure that your build settings are set to Windows and you're using 64-bit. If you're designing on a Mac like me, your default is going to be publishing to Mac, so you may have to install the settings that you need, the system that you need in order to publish to Windows, which takes a little bit. Once that's done, go into the player settings, make sure you put in your name or your company's name so that it is saved with the app, and version your build, because you may have to do several versions. And the way that LUMOplay works is when you upload a replacement build, it won't update in the software unless the build number is 1 decimal higher. So just use sort of standard versioning numbering for your file. Your Unity should already have all of the icons that we use with our SDK. These all get applied when you import the package. So there's nothing else that you need to change, but it is a good idea to just double check that the correct icons are in place. You should have the LUMOplay logo and the little icon for game. You can change these to whatever you want to. I just wouldn't leave them blank. And if you're using a free version of Unity, you're not going to be able to remove that Made with Unity splash screen that shows up at the beginning of the game, and that's fine. You can still use the game in LUMOplay whether or not that's disabled, but if you want to get rid of that splash scene, the best way to do it is just pay for your Unity license. If you're making something in a classroom, which would be a really great opportunity as a STEM program to just get an intro into looking at how something like this is set up and changing the components and familiarizing yourself with the interface, then using Unity's free version is a great way to make sure that students can all make games for LUMOplay. So if your school only has one LUMOplay setup, they don't need to have a LUMOplay license in order to do this. You only need the free version of Unity and the free LUMOplay SDK. Something to keep in mind is if you make something with our SDK, it's not branded and it meets our community criteria, we will publish it to our app library for you for free. So if you're a teacher and you're looking at teaching Unity in your classroom and you have a LUMOplay system in your school, this is a great way to give your students a really cool project that doesn't take very long and gets them familiar with what Unity is all about. And there's a lot of very advanced and sophisticated things that you can do with our SDK, but just going in and modifying one of the example scenes that it comes with is a really nice starting point, and you can make some really cool stuff using free assets from the Unity Asset Store. I always forget the exact steps involved in publishing the app because you need to create a JSON file. This is the file that tells us what version the app is and also what it's called. Once your app has been built and you have all the folders and the files that you need to create an exportable and an executable app, then it's really helpful to go to the actual article that goes through step-by-step how to publish your app and prepare it to be uploaded to LUMOplay, just to make sure that you've done all the steps correctly. What you should have in the end is a JSON file and a folder with all your build files named properly, and you can zip those up and you can send them to us at info@lumoplay.com and we'll publish your app for you. As of right now, we don't have a way for people to upload these zip files themselves. We have to put a lot of security in place in order to allow that to happen. What happens when you send your zip file is we run it through some virus scanners before we put it on the site, because even if you're the only person that's going to use it, we want to make sure that any apps that are being played through our player are safe for people to use. This process usually only takes 3 or 4 hours if you contact us during business hours, but if you need something published right away, or if you plan to be working on something that needs to be published within a certain timeline, it's a really good idea to let us know before you even start building your app so that we can make sure that we're watching for it and we can get it published for you as quickly as possible. I hope you enjoyed watching this tutorial as much as I enjoyed making it. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments or reach me at info@lumoplay.com. I look forward to hearing from you, and if you do make something with LumoPlay, please let me know. Remember to tag us at LumoPlay and we'll share your project. And as always, thank you to everybody who has subscribed or liked or engaged with our videos. This is the only way that we get the word out about LumoPlay, and if you enjoy this type of content or you enjoy supporting small businesses that are working to make technology more affordable for not-for-profits and schools, then please consider subscribing or hitting like or leaving a comment or just sharing this video with somebody that you think would find it interesting. I'll see you next week with another tutorial. What do you think, Mo? You like it? Pretty Halloween-y? It's good? Yeah? Is it good? Do you like Halloween? Yeah, me too. I think it's pretty fun.